If f of x equals 4x minus 7 and g of x equals x squared minus 3, find f of g of x and g of f of x and their domains. We're going to start by looking at the domains of the functions f and g. And we notice here that both of them are polynomial functions, and so the domains are all real numbers. Because both of these functions have all real numbers for their domains, we're not going to have any problems with domains when we take the compositions. That's nice. Now, let's look at the compositions. First, we'll look at f of g of x. Now, we have to evaluate f at g of x, and g of x is x squared minus 3, so that means we need to evaluate f at x squared minus 3. Now, f is a function that multiplies the input by 4 and subtracts 7, so we need to multiply x squared minus 3 by 4 and subtract 7. We are taking our value of g of x, x squared minus 3, and we're substituting it in to f of x. Wherever we see an x, our input instead is going to be x squared minus 3. Now, to simplify this, we can distribute the 4. That gives us 4x squared minus 12 minus 7. And then we can combine like terms. This gives us 4x squared minus 19. So f of g of x is 4x squared minus 19. And the domain is the set of numbers x, such that x is a real number. And that's that. Now, let's take a look at g of f of x. In this case, we need to start with f of x, and we know f of x is 4x minus 7. So we have to evaluate g at 4x minus 7. Now, g as a function takes the input and squares it and then subtracts 3. So if we're evaluating g at 4x minus 7, we need to square 4x minus 7 and subtract 3. To simplify this, we want to get rid of the parentheses. We've got to square 4x minus 7, and we know that that's a special product. So when we've got a difference squared, we can take the first term and square it. That's 16x squared, minus double the product of the terms. The product of 4x and 7 is 28x. Double that is going to be 56x. And then we add the last term squared. 7 times 7 is 49. And we can't forget that minus 3. If you're not someone who really feels confident about these special product formulas, where we're squaring the first term, subtracting twice the product, and squaring the last, remember, you can always FOIL this out. If you've got 4x minus 7 squared, this is 4x minus 7 times 4x minus 7. You can multiply the first, outer, inner, last, and combine like terms, and you should end up with that trinomial there. If you want to do this, you can pause the video now, go through the process of foiling, and make sure that you get this same answer. Now at this point, we have one last thing to do. We can combine those constant terms. So this gives us 16x squared minus 56x plus 49, 48, 47, 46. And so g of f of x is 16x squared minus 56x plus 46. And again, the domain ends up being all real numbers. And that's our final answer. One quick note, for problems done in Webassign, it typically wants interval notation instead of set builder notation. When our domains are all real numbers, that means we're including the entire number line. And so in this case, for each of these compositions of functions, the domain would be the interval from -infinity to infinity.